And right now, the White House is denying President Trump wrote a letter to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. House lawmakers released a document yesterday purportedly signed by President Trump. The note was first reported by the Wall Street Journal in July. At the time, the president described it as fake, and he's now suing the outlet. Last night on The Takeout, Nancy Cordes spoke to an author of a book about Epstein to get his take on whether or not it's authentic.
Donald Trump's signature, it should be noted, has changed over the years. This was back in 2003. The next year, he went on The Apprentice. He wrote a few books. He was signing a lot of books at that time, and his signature changed. But this signature matches up to his handwriting at the time, circa 2003. So it does look legitimate to me. But if this lawsuit continues, of course, there'll be great scrutiny from forensic handwriting experts and lawyers over whether or not this signature is in fact true.
CBS News Justice correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now from outside of our D.C. bureau with more on this. Good morning, Scott. So help our viewers understand, what is inside this alleged letter from President Trump when he was a private citizen, and how is the White House explaining all of it?
Beginning with the caveat, Errol, that the White House has repeatedly denied he is the author of this message or that he sketched or signed this message. The message is apparently in the shape of an outline of a naked woman and includes a reference to a wonderful secret between Epstein at the very bottom. So it's raising questions about whether the president had a connection to Jeffrey Epstein in 2003 before Epstein was convicted of sex trafficking underage girls, and what the nature of the relationship between Trump and Epstein was. But it connects Trump to Epstein again, even as the president and the White House are trying to extinguish this fire. This inflames the fire. It also runs counter to the claims made in July by the vice president that such a letter, such a message does not exist. This was released, Errol, by the Democrats on the U.S. House Oversight Committee. They were the ones who first posted this image of this message, part of a subpoenaed set of records from the overall House Oversight Committee. Republicans say Democrats are cherry-picking and selectively showing much of what was in that file.
And we're seeing images of Trump and Epstein over the years. They did know each other. But to your point about cherry-picking, Scott, Epstein knew many high-profile people because the records include a birthday note that appears to be signed by former President Bill Clinton. Tell us about that.
Same year, 2003. This would be for Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003. This is years before Epstein was convicted of a crime. The pile of papers in this file includes a number of sordid messages which have either double entendres or potential lascivious content to them. But the names are well-known names. Jeffrey Epstein ran in powerful circles, operated in very powerful places. But the bigger issue, I think, for the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein isn't so much what's in those records, what's on those papers. It's what's happening with his co-conspirator. Ghislaine Maxwell sat down this summer for an interview with Trump's Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. And in the days after, she was transferred to a lower security federal prison. And there's concern that she is being given special treatment, even as she sits with the Trump administration. And that is rubbing every one of these survivors with whom we've spoken the wrong way.
All right, Scott MacFarlane in Washington. Scott, thank you.
Talk about the fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein case that clearly continues to have an impact from the White House to Capitol Hill. A House panel probing the government's handling of the case is releasing more files from that it obtained from the Epstein estate. And the latest release from the House Oversight Committee includes a letter the White House said did not exist. It's a typed message with what appears to be the outline of a woman's body. President Donald Trump signed the letter as part of a birthday book sent to Epstein back in 2003, but he has denied signing it. The Republican chair of the committee accused Democrats of cherry-picking documents and politicizing them. So we have reaction from two lawmakers on whether they believe the president on the letter. Listen.
The president said that's not him. I believe the president. From what I see, it's not a signature. I've seen Donald Trump sign a million things.
I think it's a distraction.
What do you mean?
I mean, it doesn't prove anything. Having a birthday card from Trump doesn't help the survivors and the victims. It doesn't name an additional new person who could be indicted.
All right, let's get to the Hill and CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, thank you for joining us today. The White House says the letter is fake. We just heard from some lawmakers who say they believe the president when he says he did not sign it. So what have you heard from other lawmakers about this so far?
Mugo, great to see you. This is essentially coming down on party lines. The two lawmakers that you heard in that clip are Republicans, and we've also heard from the House Speaker and other Republican leaders essentially saying that they believe the president and that the president says this is not his signature. Now, I should also note that you featured Thomas Massie, Republican, in that last clip. He is the one that's actually calling for that discharge petition to bring to a vote on the House floor for more documents to be released. So he has been leading a bipartisan charge to get more of these documents released. So it was interesting to hear what he had to say there. But basically, we are hearing Democrats and Republicans essentially go into partisan kind of warfare here. I should note, too, that the House leadership wants this to go through the Oversight Committee. And the Oversight Committee has subpoenaed for a lot of these documents. They subpoenaed the Jeffrey Epstein estate, and that is how they got that birthday book, as it's so called, and other documents to be released. But the release of that has become political. So what we saw yesterday was released from the Democrats and Republicans, especially the chairman of that respective committee, is saying that that is not the intent of the investigation here. And he said that he also believes what the president is saying here. So, as I've been saying for many weeks now, this is a real story about real victims, and many of whom were highlighted on Capitol Hill last week. And all of this partisan politics, you know, you have to raise the question about what does this really do for them. Republicans and Democrats both argue that they're trying to get more information for those victims, just doing it in very different ways.
Yeah, very important question. What does this actually do for the victims, the women who were affected by Jeffrey Epstein? So House Speaker Mike Johnson, he is now walking back his claim that President Trump was acting as an FBI informant in the Epstein case. Here's how the speaker clarified his remarks last night, and then we'll get your take, Caitlin, on the other side of things.
He kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago when he learned about this, the allegations of this just evil behavior, evil acts, and that he was participating in some way with law enforcement to bring about an end to that. I don't know if I used the right word. I said FBI informant. I'm not sure. I wasn't there. This is in my lane. I'm just repeating what is common knowledge and has been out in the public for a long time. President Trump was never a hindrance to the Epstein investigation. He was trying to assist in that.
So, Caitlin, as you heard there, there's the speaker walking back those comments, and it raises the question, are more GOP lawmakers likely to take a more cautious approach when it comes to supporting President Trump on Epstein?
Yeah, well, Mugo, last week the House voted on a measure to essentially give the Oversight Committee jurisdiction over all of this and essentially say, hey, we're going to follow this through the Oversight Committee, because that comes as you do have some Republicans like Massie and most Democrats calling for a full vote on the House floor to have more transparency around this issue, release more documents. This also speaks to that clip that you just played there, also speaks to the way in which this issue has really been hovering over everything up here on Capitol Hill. I should note that in just a few weeks from now, the government is poised to shut down if Congress can't agree on funding levels to continue to fund the government. They've got a lot of work to do on deadline, and this is an issue that continues to hover over everything. House Speaker Mike Johnson and others hoped that the August recess would kind of dampen or quell the calls for more investigations about this, more information about this, and it really hasn't. And so we are yet at the start of another week in which this is hovering over all of the work to be done. And you can start to sense the frustration that leaders up here have when they're asked about this issue, and rightfully so, because more information is being released about it.
Yeah, seems like, again, a case that's just not going away anytime soon. Caitlin Huey-Burns on Capitol Hill for us today. Thank you so much for your time. Remember this. It's the report that dominated headlines back in July, and we're now getting a first-hand look at some of the, quote, body letters the Wall Street Journal described as being gifted to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. And that includes the one President Donald Trump allegedly wrote. Here's what we know. The House Oversight Committee released over 200 pages from the book they say was compiled by Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell. It comes after the committee subpoenaed Epstein's estate this month as part of an investigation into the U.S. government handling of the case. Now, here is a tweet from committee Democrats with the alleged note signed by President Donald Trump. But keep in mind, he has denied having anything to do with the drawing you're looking at right now. Members of the Trump administration are already doubling down on that. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the story false. She added it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. This is fake news to perpetuate the Democrat Epstein hoax. The Deputy White House Chief of Staff is calling on News Corp, the parent company of the Wall Street Journal, to, quote, open that checkbook. And Vice President J.D. Vance, he is weighing in as well. He says the Democrats don't care about Epstein, and the only thing they care about is concocting another fake scandal like Russiagate to smear President Trump with lies. No one is falling for this BS. That's a quote from the vice president. Let's bring in CBS News Chief Senior White House Correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you for joining us on 24/7 today. We know the committee released over 200 pages from that book. So what were some of the other notable pages from it?
Well, one that's getting a lot of attention, Mugo, was a short letter that was submitted by former President Bill Clinton, a handwritten note that appears to say in part that it's reassuring that our friendship has lasted this long, also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference. You know, a lot of the letters were sort of suggestive in nature, having to do with women and women's bodies. And the one that is perhaps getting the most attention is purported to come from a New York real estate developer, someone who was in the same line of work at the time as the president, Donald Trump. And this one includes a picture of Donald Trump, of Jeffrey Epstein, holding a large novelty check that says that Epstein is joking about selling a fully depreciated woman to Donald Trump for $22,000. So a very suggestive picture. Obviously, it's very difficult to know what exactly this picture originated as. We're talking about something that is more than 20 years old at this point, but the fact that there is another joking reference to Donald Trump and women in this birthday book of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein obviously creates more headaches for this White House.
Yeah, it certainly does. And Nancy, when the Wall Street Journal first reported on this back in July, we know the president denied it completely. He even sued the Wall Street Journal. So where do things stand when it comes to that lawsuit?
That lawsuit is still out there. He sued them for $10 billion for defamation. You pointed out that even today, even despite the fact that what was released by the House Oversight Committee very closely resembles what the Wall Street Journal described back in July, this note back and forth of an imaginary conversation between Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that the signature on the document that was released by the Oversight Committee looks very, very similar to other examples of the president's signature back at the time, back in 2003. So the White House hasn't really said what it is about this image that is fake, that is a hoax, given that, that it so closely resembles what the Wall Street Journal had already reported, but the lawsuit goes forward nevertheless. So I assume that there will be more efforts to take a look at this document and to run it through all the traps and make sure that it is legitimate.
Okay. CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Nancy Cordes, thank you so much for your reporting.